One of the most dangerous moments with a narcissist is not when they are angry, it is not when they are yelling, it is the moment they realize you understand them. You see the manipulation, you see the patterns. You are no longer confused by the guilt, the charm, the silent treatment, or the sudden kindness. And once they know that you know, something changes. Their mask starts slipping, their strategy starts shifting, and the way they deal with you becomes very different. A lot of people think the hardest part of dealing with a narcissist is the lying or the gaslighting or the emotional chaos. And yes, all of that is painful, but there is another moment that feels even stranger. It is when you stop reacting the way you used to, when you stop over-explaining, when you stop chasing closure, when you start noticing that every argument has the same shape, every apology has a hidden agenda, every misunderstanding somehow becomes your fault, and little by little, you begin to see them clearly. That is usually the moment everything starts changing, because narcissistic people often do very well when you are confused. They do very well when you are doubting yourself. They do very well when you are still trying to prove your innocence, explain your heart, or make them finally understand your pain. But once you begin to see the pattern, once your energy changes, once they feel that you are no longer fully under the spell, they feel it. And trust me, they feel it fast. And this is the part nobody really talks about. What actually happens inside a narcissist when they realize you understand them. Because something very specific happens. They start watching you differently. Not with love, not with connection, with calculation. They start testing you. Small things at first. A strange comment. A subtle jab. A story that doesn't quite make sense. Almost like they are asking one silent question. Do you really see me? Or can I still pull you back in? And when they realize you are not reacting the same way anymore, that is when the real shift begins. Because narcissists depend on emotional reactions. Your frustration, your explaining, your defending yourself, your need to fix things. That is their oxygen. And when that oxygen starts disappearing, they feel it like panic, not sadness, panic, because now they are standing in front of someone who is no longer predictable, and unpredictability feels dangerous to them. This is when you might notice something very strange. They might become unusually nice, or suddenly distant, or oddly quiet, or strangely irritated by things that never bothered them before. Because now they are trying to figure out one thing. Are they losing control, or are you just going through a phase? And here is the part most people don't realize. When a narcissist knows you understand them, they don't just feel exposed, they feel threatened, not because you attacked them, not because you argued, but because you stopped being emotionally available for manipulation. And that changes everything. And when this shift happens, most narcissists start showing very predictable reactions. Let me show you the most common ones. When a narcissist realizes you understand them, they usually don't explode immediately. They adapt, and most of them start showing very similar reactions, not random reactions, predictable ones. Here are the 5 most common ones. Reaction number 1. They suddenly become very nice. Not normal nice, strategic nice. You might suddenly see more compliments, more attention, more understanding, almost like the version of them you always wished existed. And many people fall for this moment because it feels like maybe they finally understood me, but what is often happening psychologically is not empathy, it is damage control. Because when they feel you pulling away emotionally, they sometimes try to pull you back before you fully detach. Reaction number 2, they start testing your awareness. Small tests, little provocations. They might say something slightly disrespectful. Then watch your reaction. They might twist a small story. Then watch if you challenge it. They might ignore you briefly. Then watch if you chase, because now they are trying to measure something. How much control do I still have? And your reaction tells them everything. Reaction number 3. they try to bring back the confusion. Because clarity is dangerous for manipulation. So they might rewrite history, deny things you clearly remember, change narratives, create emotional chaos again. Because confusion is the environment where they function best. If you are clear, they lose leverage. If you are confused, they regain power. I'm curious, if you have experienced this shift, which reaction did you notice first? The sudden kindness, the testing, or the confusion? Write the number in the comments. Reaction number 4. They start emotionally withdrawing. Less warmth, less openness, less interest, almost like they are slowly disconnecting. And this confuses many people because they think, did I do something wrong? But often, this is not about punishment. It is about protection. Because when narcissistic people feel psychologically seen, they sometimes reduce emotional exposure. Because emotional exposure means less control. Reaction number 5. Subtle hostility. Not always open aggression. Sometimes something colder. Sarcasm, dismissiveness, passive criticism. Little comments meant to lower your confidence. Because when control weakens, some narcissists switch to intimidation. Not always loudly, sometimes quietly. Because if they cannot control you through confusion, they may try through discomfort. And this is usually the clearest sign they know you see them now. But here is what most people misunderstand about this moment. None of these reactions are random. They all come from one psychological reality that very few people talk about. And once you understand this part, their behavior starts making a lot more sense. And this is usually the moment many survivors realize they were never dealing with misunderstanding. They were dealing with control. But here is the deeper truth most people don't realize. When a narcissist realizes you understand them, they are not just reacting to you. They are reacting to something much bigger, loss of psychological position. Because narcissistic dynamics are often built on one invisible structure. One person sees clearly, the other person doubts themselves, and as long as you were doubting yourself, the structure was stable. But the moment you start seeing clearly, that structure starts collapsing. And that is why this moment feels so different. Because you are not just changing behavior, you are changing the entire psychological balance. And that can feel very uncomfortable for them. Because now they cannot rely on the same emotional shortcuts. They cannot rely on your guilt. They cannot rely on your need to fix things. They cannot rely on your emotional overinvestment. And when those tools stop working, they often feel something they rarely tolerate well: powerlessness. Not real powerlessness, but loss of control. And many narcissistic personalities experience loss of control as emotional danger, not because you hurt them, not because you attacked them, but because you stopped participating in the old dynamic. And this is the part many survivors misunderstand. You did not become cold. You did not become cruel. You did not become distant. You became aware. And awareness changes the game. And many narcissists don't fear losing you. They fear losing influence over you. And this is something I'm really curious about, because people experience this moment very differently. Some people see the kindness phase. Some see the anger. Some see the distance. So I'm curious about your experience. I want to ask you something honestly. When the narcissist in your life realized you understood them, what changed first? Was it the sudden kindness, the emotional distance, the testing behavior, or the subtle hostility? Because something almost always shifts. And people often notice one reaction before the others. So I'm really curious, which one showed up first in your experience? You can just write 1 for kindness, 2 for testing, 3 for confusion, 4 for distance, 5 for hostility, or if your situation was different, you can share that too. Because one thing I've noticed is this: when people start understanding these patterns, they also start understanding their own story differently. And sometimes just putting it into words is part of taking your clarity back. And if you're comfortable, tell me how long it took you to realize the pattern. And if you're at the stage where you're starting to see these patterns, there is one more thing that becomes very important to understand. Because awareness is the beginning, but what you do after awareness is what really protects your peace. If you are starting to see these patterns, that usually means something important is happening. You are no longer just reacting, you are starting to understand. And understanding narcissistic behavior is not about winning against them. It is not about proving them wrong. It is not about changing them. It is about something much more important, protecting your mental space. Because the real shift doesn't happen when they change. The real shift happens when you stop expecting them to. And that is usually the moment people start feeling something they haven't felt in a long time: emotional stability. Less confusion, less self-doubt, less emotional exhaustion, more clarity. And clarity is usually where healing begins. So if this is something you are starting to recognize, you are not alone in this process. Understanding these patterns is a skill, and the more you see them, the harder it becomes to be manipulated. And if you want to understand these dynamics even deeper, I made other videos on this channel where we break down how narcissists react when they lose control, why they suddenly become cold, and how to emotionally detach without guilt. You can explore those next. And I'm really glad you were here for this conversation. Because once you see the pattern, you can never unsee it.